On July 12, 2023, China was introduced to Valorant for the first time in history, although players like Nobody and Kang were playing together in late 2020, roughly 4 months after pioneers of the game like Shazam, Brax, Tens, and more started to compete. So if Chinese Valorant has been around as long as the other regions, why are they getting so much praise for their performance while being 3 years late to Valorant? Well, due to things like concern about the youth spending too much time on video games to general politics is the reason China took so long to get into Valorant. Riot Games had to negotiate the strict regulatory environment of China. As many of you know, China has very strict rules when it comes to video games or anything really at all. So how does this affect the level of competition in China if they have all been playing since roughly the same amount of time anyway, right? Well, yes, but no. You'd actually be surprised to know that China has participated in 3 out of the last 4 Champions events, going all the way back to 2022. Do you remember that iconic loss Optic took to Loud?
There's so much utility to work with again. Magala and Aspas have both found one.
It's all on one. The last man standing, FNS, and after so much time, so many years of heartbreak at the hands of...
Heartbreaking to this day. Well, EDG were actually there. They just didn't make it very far in that tournament. And players like Asuna have gone on record saying they used to VOD review Chinese teams back at the start of Valorant.
The game just came out for them, by the way.
They've been playing for the last 3 years, bro, 4 years.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
wait.
like for like the majority of like the public though. No?
I mean, I don't know, but they've been playing for a while. Like Hong Kong and Life.
Oh,
have been
well,
playing
yeah,
since
those guys,
2020.
yeah.
Like I remember watching their VODs, and then people are like, they haven't played Valorant. This is their first year. And I'm like,
Okay, well that's cap. Yeah, that's
like I
definitely
literally remember watching their VODs and like seeing what their Chinese teams were doing in 2020.
Things like Ranked would become publicly available on July 12, 2023, which would dramatically help Chinese Valorant players sharpen their skills. Good practice environments did not become available till July of 2023, and only a year later, China would go on to dominate Valorant. So what was progression like for Chinese Valorant? At Champions 2022, they would play versus PRX and Liquid, only taking one singular map in the whole tournament off of PRX, who they would go on to form a rivalry and a brotherhood with. They would later be very important to EDG's story. At Champions 2023, they would do slightly better. For perspective, this is where the infamous BLG versus NRG battle would occur.
Losing to Zeta, we ain't losing to Billy again. Trust me right now, we'll be in playoffs and we're guaranteed, I promise you that.
But EDG would make it to playoffs at Champions 2023, but then shortly get knocked out by Loud, ending their Champions 2023 run, at 3 wins and 3 losses, not quite making the impact they had hoped to yet. This is also where the infamous Boostio clip came from.
Boostio, also coming from Snay from Sportskita. You've expressed quite a few thoughts on Chinese Valorant in the past. Would you say that your opinions have changed today after facing Edward Gaming?
No. They are really good for Chinese team, but I don't know. They're not very good, to be honest. Kong was a disappointment.
Now for 2024, at Madrid they would go on to win one series versus PRX again, and then get knocked out, not even making it to playoffs. Then their run at Shanghai wouldn't be any better. They would get knocked out without winning a single map in a match where they were supposed to shock the world. They were at Shanghai, they had home court advantage. They were supposed to show up for the Chinese crowd. Going home without winning a map was extremely disappointing. Now for Champions Seoul, this is where Chinese Valorant as a whole started to turn some heads. FPX had a great couple moments against Team Heretics, who were the former second place team at Shanghai. Leb would get dominated by Trace Esports in the group stage. Trace would also go on to come out of the group stage as the first seed, over teams like Leviathan, Vitality, and Talon. EDG would come out of the group not looking as dominant as Trace, but a respectable second seed and a win over PRX in the lower bracket. That's 2 out of 3 Chinese teams who qualified making it to playoffs in a pretty stacked event. But unfortunately, Valorant would interfere, and for the first time in history, 2 Chinese teams would make playoffs and during the first match end up playing each other. EDG would go on to knock Trace into the lower bracket, completely low-broing them.
As just one remains in a 1v4. Oh, there are 4 players waiting for you. EDG proving.
Trace would unfortunately go on to lose to DRX, who were playing very well, and end their tournament. This was not the end for EDG. Their next match would be against the most overrated team in Valorant, Sentinels, who just came off a win versus Genji, and by far the favorite to win this match. But then PRX actually would contact EDG and scrim them, and basically replicate how Sentinels played, to help EDG practice, which nobody knew at the time of this match. Sentinels would start the series 1-0 versus EDG, but then EDG would go on to dominate the defense side of Lotus and the attack side of Sunset and win the series 2-1. At this point, nobody knew that TRX helped EDG. People thought it was somewhat a fluke that EDG beat Sentinels, and thought EDG were surely doomed versus Leviathans, the heroes of Americas who were honestly the favorites to win the whole tournament. They would go on to have a good showing versus Leviathan besides Lotus, showing that they can show up when it matters, and when everything is on the line, even in a close series, 2 of the maps coming down to the wire, but they were victorious over Lev, knocking them into the lower bracket. Then came the grand finals. EDG would have a back and forth series versus Team Heretics, with the series being 2-1 in their favor. Team Heretics would nearly choke, but ultimately they would win Bind 13-11, bringing the series to 2-2 in the final map Abyss, where they previously didn't have the strongest showing versus Leviathan. So most fans believed this was where Team Heretics would come back and win the series after a previous heartbreaking second place at Shanghai versus Genji. But EDG would dominate the first half at 8-4, and they would take the series with the lead 11-4. And this is where it started to look grim for Team Heretics. But Team Heretics would win the next 5 rounds in a row, bringing the series to 9-11. Still down by 2, but they had the momentum. Then Kang happens.
Kang forced to step up to the moment, dash to avoid, and shots are fired! Kang! He's monstrous when he gets going! And he does it! Almost single-handedly!
Swaying the momentum back in the favor of EDG, and from there they would win the series, while Kang breaks the kill record and officially puts Chinese Valorant on the map.